Yes, water falls from the sky, but we don't put buckets in the backyard and collect it and fill a cistern and pump it into the house. One time I went home and the water had been turned off and I didn't know about it, and I was just in shock. We're just so used to having ready, clean water supply. We do take it for granted in this country because we're just very fortunate, but there are countries all over the world where people may spend their entire day walking miles just to go get a gallon of water, and it may not even be that clean.
A lot of folks turn the tap on, the water's always there, and they never have issues, and so they sort of take for granted the challenges that it really takes to get it there and how invaluable that water resource is until it's gone, until the well dries up or the streams or springs dry up.
Ada's own Robert S. Kerr once called water the state's most blessed resource. If he were alive today, he would certainly be waist deep in the battle to conserve and protect that resource, and would call on his fellow Oklahomans to do the same. Nowhere is that battle more focused than the Arbuckle-Simpson Aquifer, which provides water to Ada as well as numerous other communities in southern Oklahoma. The Arbuckle-Simpson Aquifer covers about 500 square miles underneath 5 south-central Oklahoma counties and provides water to approximately 39,000 people. It has been Ada's only water supply for more than 100 years. Because of its very high quality, water from this aquifer is treasured by those who use it and coveted by those who need it.
Folks in Ada and those surrounding communities that rely upon the Arbuckle-Simpson are very fortunate. In communities across the state of Oklahoma would love to be able to tap into a water supply of that rich water quality.
In 1989, the Federal Environmental Protection Agency designated the Arbuckle-Simpson Aquifer as a sensitive sole source groundwater basin because it supplies at least 50% of the drinking water consumed in the area overlying it. The Arbuckle-Simpson is one of only 77 such aquifers in the entire country and the only one in Oklahoma.
It essentially means that those communities that rely on that aquifer for drinking water have no other great alternatives beyond that aquifer. So it's the sole source of drinking water for the communities that overlie that Arbuckle-Simpson area, including Ada, Sulphur, Davis, Tishomingo, and a lot of other communities down in that area.
But the 39,000 people who rely on the Arbuckle-Simpson Aquifer for sustenance doesn't even scratch the surface of the number of people, plants, and animals that not only depend on it, but enjoy it on a daily basis. When the water comes out of the ground, it becomes surface water in the form of rivers and streams. The number of life forms that interface with it becomes much, much higher. This natural transition from groundwater to surface water is where it gets a little more complicated.
People can sort of picture this as a bucket under the ground, and the bucket has to overflow. And so if that bucket is not overflowing with water, if you start depleting the levels in that bucket, there is no more overflow and the springs dry up. And then all of a sudden, Birds Mill Springs gone, the Chickasaw National Recreation Area is gone, Turner Falls, Falls Creek, all of those treasures, but also the flows in Pennington Creek and Blue River that end up providing drinking water for Tishomingo and as far away as Durant in southeast Oklahoma.
In short, Ada and the other communities that use the Arbuckle-Simpson Aquifer as a sole source water supply must share it with millions of other residents and visitors throughout southern Oklahoma. And although annual rainfall recharges the aquifer, the unabated human thirst for water could potentially destroy the source altogether by draining it faster than it can ever be replenished.
Well, I think coming out of finally 4.5 years of drought in the state of Oklahoma, and a drought like we really probably haven't seen since the mid-50s in the state of Oklahoma, hopefully has given everyone a renewed appreciation for how precious our water resources are.
Recognizing the uncommon value of the state's only sole source water supply, in 2003 the Oklahoma legislature passed Senate Bill 288, which called for further protection of the groundwater stored in the Arbuckle-Simpson Aquifer. The bill placed a moratorium on the issuance of any further temporary groundwater permits for municipal or public supply outside of those counties that overlie it. Senate Bill 288 also required that the moratorium stay in effect until the Oklahoma Water Resources Board completed a comprehensive hydrologic study of the Arbuckle-Simpson that would determine once and for all a maximum yield that would not reduce the natural flow of water from springs and streams emanating from the aquifer. The hydrologic study of the Arbuckle-Simpson aquifer took 6 years to complete. 4 years after that, during which time the study was digested and debated, the state's water agency, following the mandate set forth in Senate Bill 288, took action. It resulted in a landmark ruling that for the first time in Oklahoma's history acknowledged the inseparable link between ground and surface water.
In 2013, October of 2013, the Oklahoma Water Resources Board issued a new maximum annual yield order requiring that the new equal proportionate share, the share of the groundwater basin that people can use in that basin, be lowered from 2 acre-feet to 0.2 acre-feet, or essentially, 2.5 inches of water per acre of land. Of course, that's a tenfold decrease in the amount of groundwater that a person can utilize or a city can utilize based on the acres of land that they own or lease over that basin. And what that means for the city of Ada and for rural water districts and other industries and ag producers in that area is now they have to, if they want to be able to maintain the same amount of water that they withdraw from the Arbuckle-Simpson, they all of a sudden have to have 10 times more water rights.
To its credit, the city of Ada has closely monitored the battle over water rights from the Arbuckle-Simpson aquifer and has taken, and is continuing to take, the necessary steps to prepare for such an extreme reduction. While the Water Board's reduction order is being challenged in court, the ruling stands until overturned. With a thorough hydrologic study that provides rock-solid science behind the ruling, it's unlikely to be overturned. The city of Ada has thoroughly investigated any and all alternative water supplies, even conducting a lake feasibility study in the wake of Senate Bill 288. Interestingly enough, Ada has considered a lake on several occasions in its history, but time and again the evaporation-proof water supply stored in the Arbuckle-Simpson aquifer rises to the top.
One of the unique characteristics of the Arbuckle-Simpson and benefits that Ada realizes because of the source is how clear, clean, pristine the water is. The only treatment that we apply to our water is that we add chlorine and a very minimal amount of fluoride, and then we send it into the distribution system for our consumers to drink. That's not very common, even in a lot of water well or groundwater sources.
In 2010, a full 3 years before the Oklahoma Water Resources Board issued its reduction order, Ada voters approved a sales tax measure that funded, among other projects, a comprehensive study of the city's water distribution system. The city commissioned the study after reaffirming its commitment to the Arbuckle-Simpson aquifer as a sole water supply for the foreseeable future.
The engineering report and study identified $25 million worth of improvements that consist of rehabilitating and making or modernizing the existing wells. That consists of items such as new buildings, new miscellaneous piping and valving, reporting of how much water we're using from those wells. It consists of items such as rehabilitating the spring and how the water leaves the spring, how we can control whether we're using spring water and or well water. It consists of replacing 12 miles of 30-inch water line. It consists of rehabilitating and replacing our clear well at the water treatment plant, as well as just metering and controlling the water as it comes into the water treatment plant. And so if we're able to minimize any loss or leaks of water from the supply to the plant, and we're able to more accurately deliver water from the plant to our end users, all of those activities help us manage the water more efficiently. And that allows us then to better control our costs, whether it is in the acquisition of a determined amount of water rights, and as well as just the physical delivery of the water to the customer.
The intentional confluence of the hydrologic study of the Arbuckle-Simpson Aquifer and the study of Ada's water distribution system has provided the city with a solid game plan moving forward. Water rates will have to be increased to offset the $25 million in system improvements that will in turn maximize the efficiency of the reduced yield the city can take from the Arbuckle-Simpson Aquifer. Ada has been working closely with a consulting firm for more than a year now to figure out the best way to keep that increase to a minimum.
Not everyone is as fortunate as the residents of Ada to have such a wonderful, abundant supply so nearby, but that water still has to be treated and transported, and that all costs money. And it's just kind of invisible to us. I don't think too much when I flip a light switch about how the electricity and the power got there, just like we don't think too much about how that clean water came into our homes and the wastewater went out. When water's collected from the spring, or a well, it has to be transported, it has to be tested, it has to be treated, it has to meet all these environmental regulations before it can then be transported to your home. And that's through a whole series of it's a whole highway of piping underground, and it has to be metered. And then you've got to have people that are ready and available to go out and fix those water main breaks. You've got to be able to calibrate those meters. You've got to have customer service people. You have to have engineers and chemists, and there's a lot that goes into that free-flowing clean water that comes into your home. It's interesting when you try to do rate comparisons, they don't necessarily tell the whole story. It's a bit of a slippery slope, but definitely Ada's water rates are on the low side.
Improvements to the city's water system cannot wait. The good news is Ada can turn to the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund, administered by the Oklahoma Water Resources Board. This fund is made up of federal and state dollars and is intended solely for public water supply infrastructure projects. This option will keep interest rates below any conventional bank loan, a win-win for the city and its customers.
Utilities aren't in the business of making a profit, but they do have to collect enough revenue to meet all those costs of service. And then the part that we do is to work that whole big story problem, is what I call it, where you put all the numbers in and all the data in and all the projections in and build in the rate structures and look at what the most equitable and reasonable way to structure the rates for each class of service so that everybody's paying their fair share and the utility can operate.
Although Ada's water rates will soon increase, it's important to remember that water, an incredibly valuable and life-supporting resource, is still relatively inexpensive. Moreover, users can control what they pay through water conservation, and that's a wise approach for every citizen to take. The City of Ada is committed to serving as a peerless steward of the blessed resource found in the Arbuckle-Simpson Aquifer, and is taking every necessary step to make sure that its high-quality water is there for many generations to come.
It pays dividends to ensure that those taps don't go dry, that your industries that rely upon water, which is every industry, ultimately have that good, solid, reliable source of water for the next 50 years. And if the tap dries up, the community dries up, industry dries up, and everything blows away.
People see streets, they know when there's potholes or there's problems. You don't see what's buried underground. But it's as important as knowing the state of your cardiovascular system. You need to maintain that buried infrastructure, and we as a country have not done a very good job of that, so it's time we have to step up and do it.
I think one of the primary duties, responsibilities of any city or town is to make sure they have a sustainable supply of water. The city's undertaking this project because it's time. Our infrastructure is old. It needs to be replaced. We want to create the efficiencies that help keep our costs under control. And we want to ensure that our citizens, our ratepayers, are better positioned in the future, and that we're able to deliver water at the most affordable, efficient price we can.